Hello, hello. This is something that I have found fascinating for a long time, and it explains a lot about why acted the way I did when I was younger. And I think anyone and everyone who isn't lying to themselves can relate to this. In fact, it's kind of a cliche joke that's been made for generations, and that is, you just can't figure out why you acted the way you acted when you were a teenager. Oh, I was a dumb teenager. Man, I made dumb decisions. Or I can't believe I did that. Or one of my favorites is, I don't know why I did that. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. And again, this is something that I wish I would have been told when I was younger. I doubt it would have made a difference, but hopefully some teenagers are watching this and can understand. And if not, maybe some parents. And that is the teenage brain and the way it develops. And actually how it's extending. It's going longer these days. But we'll get into that. So, the reason you work with imagination so much when a child's young is because it's an important part of their development. We all need to have an imagination because that's actually how we think and problem solve. You have to create a hypothetical problem in your mind and solve it. Work something out rationally that isn't actually happening but might happen or could happen or will happen so you can plan for the future. I mean, it goes back to if you want to be an evolutionist, it goes back to tracking, hunting and tracking. You have to have an imagination in order to understand what a broken twig here means and which way they're going and all this stuff. The hypothetical situation, well, the wind's blowing this way, that's problem solving. But you have to have the imagination to be able to problem solve. So you want to develop that from a young age. And that's why we work on it. And that's how we build the problem solving and critical thinking abilities of a young person. So, the teenage mind. This is why they're so dangerous. Because if you're a parent, say you have a great kid and he's smart, he or she's smart, and they get good grades and they do well in school and they even make deep comments at home, and you think, wow, what a great kid, what a great kid. That's great. I'm not saying that's not a good thing. But remember, because we are all there, the part of the brain, I believe the frontal cortex or whatever here, let me see. Yeah, the frontal cortex, the area of the brain that controls reasoning and helps us think before we act, develops later. So the first one that develops is the amygdala, whatever. Anyway, that's like the fear, the fight or flight, that sort of stuff. The frontal cortex is for reasoning ability. Now, more research when you read scholarly articles on this, basically what's going on is the part of your brain that can take hypothetical, imaginary consequences to an act that you haven't actually done, or these consequences haven't actually happened. Maybe you've done the act. Let's say you go out drinking at a party and you're in high school. You know through your imagination and through being told, you can even by your parents what the consequences for this are, especially only if you get caught though. Only if you get caught. And you may have thought hypothetically about getting caught. But the frontal cortex that develops that's for reasoning hasn't developed to the state where it can take an imaginary consequence, something that hasn't happened yet, and store it in the real world consequences area of your brain. So, as a teenager, you may know what you're doing is wrong, but you decide, oh well, sorry, I checked. I'm going to do it anyway because it's going to be fun. Looking back, you're like, why did I make that decision? I wish I hadn't done that. I knew it was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Why did I, do this or do that or make this decision or betray my friend or whatever it might be? Knowing the consequences, you did it anyway. It's because, and this isn't an excuse, I'm not just saying they're excused or whatever, but it's important to understand, in my opinion, your ability to take an imaginary consequence and connect it to a real world consequence hasn't fully developed yet. We know the brain isn't fully developed. That's why drinking age is 21. I said earlier how it's expanding, like it's going further. They're saying now 25, and now they're actually saying that the youngest generation now, it could be 30 before the brain's fully developed. And they're blaming it on iPhones and stuff like that. Maybe. I think there's a lot of other reasons, and that is our lack of communication. You can blame our lack of communication and education on our dependence on technology. That's legitimate, but I don't think it's directly the result of technology. I mean, there's a better case that it's the result of fluoride in the water than it is that it's just our technology. Now, I'm not saying that you should be on technology all the time. You talk to your family, talk to your kids. That's the best way to develop the brain, is through human interaction, is through educating them with your words. Because even if they don't agree with what you're saying, it causes them to think. I used to talk about this with my parents when I was young, is sometimes the worst sermons after church were the most enlightening, because we would talk about it so much after church. We totally disagreed with it. Or a speech, say there's a political speech that you don't agree with, but you listen to it, and then you talk and you have to reason out why you don't agree with it and what parts of it, and it causes you to think and develop your brain more. But that's the way that we stop it from expanding, is through educating ourselves, educating our children through human interaction and conversation. But that being said, this is why throughout history, people kind of give teenagers the, that old boys will be boys sort of saying, or, because teens, the rough years, because people are aware of this. And it's the rough years because, they haven't been able to reason this stuff out their whole lives. But now they're teenagers and they're smart. I mean, they're not smart in the sense of wise because they don't have this ability yet, but they're smart. So we start to look at them as more of an adult. And you have to remember that their ability, they may know the consequences, and they're smart enough you can tell that they can name the consequences, they can say what they are, and they can even understand them. But that doesn't mean that their brain is able to store those consequences into the actual real-world consequences, frontal cortex part of the brain. The consequences that are imagined that haven't happened yet, the ability for the brain to understand that could actually happen is underdeveloped. So, educate your children, talk to your children. I think that kids should be aware of this. I don't see any reason to keep it from them. And I think it would help them to understand how their own brains will work. And it's helping to develop their brains, just getting them to think about their brains. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this. God bless and good night.